February 28th, Commissioners, if you would all please join me in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm President Barb Lewis. To my right is our Vice President, Jeff Benton. To my left, fellow Commissioner Gary Merrill. And our Administrator, Tracy Davies, our Deputy Administrator, Don Houston, and our clerks, Sarah DeNovo and Jennifer Walraven. We can begin.
Resolution number 22-125, in the matter of approving the electronic record of proceedings from regular meeting held February 24th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 22-125, Mrs. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Merrill.
Aye.
Mr. Benton.
Aye.
We do not have any public comment today, but item number 3 is a retirement treatment, and we're going to hear from our Director of Emergency Medical Services.
Morning, Commissioners. Jeff Fishel, Director of Delaware County EMS. I'm going to keep my statements brief because maybe there's some other people who would like to speak. There's quite a few behind me, but today we are honoring Captain Bob Fish for his 25 plus years of service to Delaware County. July 3rd, 1996 is when Captain Fish started with Delaware County EMS. I will not throw out where I was on July 3rd, 1996, but it wasn't even a twinkle in my eye of working for Delaware County EMS at that time. So Captain Bob Fish, if you want to come on up. Since July 3rd, 1996, I did a rough estimate. He has responded to approximately 3,000 different calls. It's unknown how many people he has seen or how many lives he has touched because we don't have a way of tracking that. Some automobile accidents have 8, some have 1. But 3,000 different calls, give or take, over his career with Delaware County EMS, and an unknown amount of contacts with people within the general public. The command staff and myself got together, and we wanted to honor you with a plaque and thank you for your service. Hopefully, hang it on your wall and remind you of your time with us, and know that we are eternally grateful to you and your service to this county. With that being said, I would like to invite Miss Fish up here. And maybe a few words, Bob?
I'll try. I've enjoyed my time here at Delaware County. I've enjoyed working for the county in general. I've enjoyed working for EMS. I love my job. I have mixed emotions right now, but I feel it's a good point in my life to retire from this and move on. And I have a farm up around Radnor, so I'm still going to be farming, and I'm on the fire department up there, so I have a few other things to keep me busy and keep me out of trouble. So, but I have really enjoyed my time here, and like I said, I love my job, and I enjoy working with these people back here, and the people I supervise are great. They've made my job really easy over the years, and I'm going to miss being here. I'm going to miss all of them, and but it's time to move on, do other things, and so. But that's about all I got to say, I guess.
Well, your career speaks for itself. I mean, my gosh, and all the people, countless people beyond the 3,000 that we don't even know about, the families that you help, Captain. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Mrs. Fish, would you like to say anything?
No, not really.
All right. Okay.
We still see her. She works over at the auditor's office.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
Oh.
I've got 7 more years to go.
Oh,
to marry an older
okay.
man.
Oh, okay.
So you're gonna come home to home-cooked meals and...
Exactly, that's what I tell him.
I've offered, if I travel, I've offered to send her postcards and what all, but that doesn't fly, so I guess I won't be doing
That
that.
didn't go over well. Yeah. Oh.
Well, I wanted to invite the two assistant chiefs up here to say a few words. Anybody else who would like to speak to Bob?
Good morning, Commissioners. Jen Cochran, Delaware County EMS, Assistant Chief of Admin. Bob was on my first really big run at Delaware County, and it was chaotic and scary. And I wasn't exactly sure what to do. I had the training, but I wasn't sure exactly what to do. And Bob assured me afterwards that I did a good job, and it was very helpful. He was also my first partner as a captain. Again, guiding me through difficult times, lifting me up when I needed it, and maybe grabbing my arm when I needed that. So I'm really sad to see him go. He's a wonderful asset to Delaware County EMS, but he deserves a wonderful, healthy, happy retirement. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Eric Burgess, Assistant Chief EMS. Captain Fish was also my first partner as a captain in 2008, so he was very instrumental in that. That's kind of a scary position. Anybody in here that's been a captain, that first time they hand you the car keys and tell you not to screw stuff up. It's always nice to have a partner that can help you get through that. You know, Bob and I've got a lot of stories. I'll keep most of those to myself for now, but he was really beneficial in helping me get through that and get through becoming a captain and give me a lot of good advice on how to handle a lot of different situations. I certainly appreciate all of that. You can tell from, he's got all of his crews here except for one who's doing a transport to Riverside right now, but he's got a lot of respect from the staff and his personnel, and I think that says a lot about him being a captain and how he's been able to influence everyone through the years. And as he mentioned, he's assistant chief of the Radnor Township Fire Department. I believe you got 40 years in there, correct? Close to it.
44, going on 45.
45 years with the Radnor Township Fire Department. So he's had a lot of years in public safety in Delaware County, and we certainly wish you the best. We've got 7 years of Sandy still razzing us about our P cards, but. So you always make sure, you only screw that up one time, and then you learn to get it right. But thanks a lot, Bob. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Kelly's going to. I can see it. I can see it.
Look a panic.
All right. I checked. They were all microphone shy. All right, Bob, from the command staff to you. Congrats on your retirement.
Thank you.
Thanks. You have a picture?
Anybody else? Picture? Absolutely.
Oh, Commissioner Lewis, did you have something?
Oh,
Did you
no,
wanna-
well, yes, we
Did you want
Oh,
to
yes.
speak on it?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
yes, she got it.
We have a commendation here for you, Captain, and on the occasion of your retirement after more than 25 years of service with Delaware County. So we want you right in the middle. Yeah. Like this. Yeah. Come on over. We'll get a picture. And this is, yeah. 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 Oh, it's on the right side. There you go. There we go.
All right, everybody look over here in 3, 2, 1. Again, in 3, 2, 1. And what I'd like to do is swap this out for just the two of you and stuff as a presentation. Let everybody stay. 3, 2, 1. Look, 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. There we go. And you know what? Everybody's here. Why don't we just get a crazy group shot? How often do we have this many?
Right here.
All right, we're just gonna take a big group shot over here, everybody. No, Glenn, switch. Okay. All right, everybody over here in 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. With great support, thank you, congratulations.
Good job, Sandy.
And I note the judge is here, so we must be on our best behavior.
Resolution number 22-126, in the matter of approving purchase orders and announced certificates and payments of warrants in batch number CM APR 0225 and memo transfers in batch number MT APR 0225.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 22-126. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Item number 5 is Judge Himanowski with the Delaware County Juvenile Probate Court.
Thank you, Judge, so much for coming over.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about just to update you on the process of where we are in establishing a Guardianship Services Board. I'm going to take a moment to take a step back into the background of this, just because I know County Administrator Davies is new to this discussion. So just as a bit of recap on what got us here. There are different forms of guardianships in Ohio. In the adult world, there are guardianships over the person. Typically, that's an adult who needs assistance in making decisions about their well-being, where they're going to live, what their medical care looks like, etc. Those persons may have a developmental disability, they may have a physical health condition, anything that leads a court to make a determination of incompetency. There are also guardianships over the estate of adults, so someone who is unable to make decisions about their finances, to pay their bills, to handle financial matters. And there are guardianships over minors, so can be a circumstance where there are care issues, care and custody issues, but also circumstances where, for example, a minor child receives a financial settlement, a personal injury claim, or something of that nature, and because they're a minor, they can't handle their own financial matters and need someone to be able to do that. When I first joined the court almost 20 years ago, we were generally in a position where we had 25 or 30 such guardianship cases where there was no logical person to be the guardian. So to give you an example, or a series of quick examples, you may have an adult who, as they age, has Alzheimer's or a non-Alzheimer's dementia, and they reach a point where they are unable to care for themselves or to handle their own finances or care decisions. In many of those cases, the logical guardian for that person is an adult child of that person, or a sibling, or a niece or nephew. Many of these cases arise because you have a minor child with a developmental disability who ages into adulthood. During the 18 years they were a minor, their parents or parent were the logical person to make those decisions for them, but now they're an adult, and the parent no longer has legal authority to make those decisions simply by means of being the adult parent of a minor child. Now they need a legal determination in order to do that, so they get appointed guardian for their child. But we often have circumstances where someone comes into court, perhaps Adult Protective Services, Bob's here, Bob Anderson from Department of Job and Family Services, perhaps APS brings a case to us with concerns about maltreatment or abuse of an adult. Perhaps a hospital brings a case to us because there's a person in their emergency room who has a mental health crisis. Or cases simply come to us by friends and neighbors. Often, cases come to us because an adult child with a developmental disability now has parents who themselves are in their 70s or 80s or 90s, or who are no longer living, and that person now needs a guardian. Where there is no logical person for that to serve in that role as a guardian, or no person who is able to serve in that role as a guardian, the court has the responsibility of finding someone to fill that role. Often that means appointing an attorney to be the guardian of that person. As I started to say a moment ago, 20 years ago when I joined the court, we often had 25, 30, 35 such cases. It is now not uncommon for us to have between 80 and 100 of those cases, and the numbers continue to increase. We pay those attorneys at the same rate we pay attorneys in public defender cases, the rate of which has just increased from $50 to $75 an hour. In guardianship cases, of course, the guardian has a substantial amount of authority over a person, particularly if it's a guardian over both the person and the estate. You're talking about a guardian having authority to make decisions about where a person lives, where they can be going and what they can be doing, where their money is going to get spent, etc. It's a substantial amount of power over another person. The court is the superior guardian in all of those cases, meaning that we can oversee and in some cases veto those decisions. But a number of safeguards have been put in place over the last 10 years in those guardianship cases, including a substantial new set of rules from the Ohio Supreme Court as to training, as to the number of cases that any person can have at one time as a guardian. And in Delaware County, we have adopted a court visitor program that actually goes out and sends volunteers to view the circumstances in which all of the wards are living to make sure that the guardian is appropriately caring for them. The problem that we run into in a rapidly growing and in some cases rapidly aging county, we're currently one of the youngest, if not the youngest county in the state of Ohio demographically, and that's going to change over the next 10, 15, and 20 years, is that the number of guardianship cases is outstripping the number of available guardians to serve in those cases. That is, we have a growing number of cases where there is not a child or a niece or a neighbor or a parent to serve as a guardian, and we have to find a person to do that. The Central Ohio Area Agency on Aging has a volunteer guardianship program, which we utilize to the greatest extent that we can. And we have a small number of attorneys who are very good at what they do and who handle these guardianship cases. But we've reached a point where we have more cases than we have people. And in fact, we have a number of guardianships at the moment where the guardian has indicated to us that they no longer wish to serve in that capacity, and we've told them that they can leave that capacity just as soon as we find someone else to do it, or just as soon as they find someone else to do it. Even more troubling, when Adult Protective Services brings cases to us, we've begun now to have to tell them they need to find someone to serve as the guardian in those cases, because the attorneys who take those cases are capped, either by the number they're willing to take or by the number that the rules allow them to take at one time to make sure that no one person overloads themselves. So what's the solution both to the financial problem of that I haven't mentioned yet, which is that we've gone from spending $25,000 or so a year to pay the attorneys to handle those cases to, and I'll turn slowly to Karen Watkins, who's sitting behind me, but I think in excess of 100, what's that? About 130. I was just going to say 135, so Karen knows the number better than I do, $130,000 a year, and that's growing every year as well. The solution to that is the Guardianship Services Board. Franklin County piloted this project about 6-7 years ago when Judge Montgomery was down there and formed the first board under a statute that at the time applied only to Franklin County. It was so successful that the state legislature, in part at a request from the Probate Judges Association, passed a new bill expanding it to all 88 counties in the state. Fairfield County was the second to do so. I know that we are in process. I know that Lucas County is in process. I know that I've had conversations with a couple of other counties in central Ohio that are examining whether to do so. So how does this work? And again, I apologize. I know the three of you and I have had these conversations before, but I want to make sure that everybody's up to speed. The three agencies that are the largest driver of these cases, the probate court, the Board of Developmental Disabilities, and the Mental Health Board get together and jointly form a Guardianship Services Board. The court has already made its appointment to that board. DD has already made its appointment to that board. The Mental Health Board is meeting tonight, and I believe they intend to do so. And once they do so, we have a board. The GSB contracts are all signed. We submitted our portion of the funding in our 22 budget to you in November and December and was approved. The commissioner's portion of that is to provide the insurance and benefits for the public guardian, the person who runs that board, a caseworker, and a support member. That was approved as part of the 22 budget when you all approved the budget in November or December, whenever that vote took place. So the funds are in place. We do have to establish, I believe, an org key through the auditor's office so that all the money can go into one fund. The Developmental Disabilities Board and the Mental Health Board approved their funding in their regular funding cycles for this year, and so all the dollars are in place.
Could you state what those amounts are?
Yes, I can, absolutely. The total anticipated amount to operate the GSB in 2022 is $255,919, and it's estimated that let me find the correct numbers here. 98,492 comes from the Board of Developmental Disabilities. 35,176 comes from mental health. 35,000 comes out of the probate court budget, with the understanding that we're still going to be paying attorneys because those cases aren't immediately going to go anywhere. 80,216 comes from the general fund for health insurance and PERS contributions. Once the board gets together, and we hope that they will be able to meet within the next few weeks, they will advertise and hire the public guardian. And the public guardian will then hire initially a caseworker and a support person to help manage the office. I anticipate in the coming years they'll probably need a second caseworker, and who knows, a decade from now, perhaps a third. The idea, though, is that they will hire most likely persons with a social work background who will be trained specifically in this area, who will be able to handle a larger number of cases than an attorney who maybe will be handling 5 or 7 or 8 or 10. We do have 2 attorneys who handle upwards of 30 of these cases. But those people who work for the board will be experts in this area. As I know I explained to all of you throughout the course of 2020 and 2021 as we were putting these gears in motion, if we do not do this now, the amount of money that the county spends on this will continue to balloon, and we will be solely responsible for those costs rather than this system in which the costs are shared across multiple agencies. But I warned for a while that we were going to get to a point where we had cases where we needed a guardian and didn't have someone, and the reality is that we're there now, where we have guardianship cases where there's a ward in need of a guardian and there just isn't someone available to serve in that role. There are other potential sources of funding that the board can investigate when they get formed and up and running. I know I've had some conversations with Bob Anderson about whether there are monies available through APS, and there may be some small amounts. I don't want to commit Mr. Anderson to anything in advance, but the board can investigate that. One of the local hospital entities has already come to me to ask whether they can participate, and they do in Franklin County as well. The reason being that they get persons in their emergency rooms, and until a guardian is appointed, they can't get that person out of their hospital. And so it's actually to their financial benefit to pay some money to the GSB to be able to go to the GSB and say, we have a person here who we think is in need of a guardianship. Can you investigate and file, and know that the GSB will move forward on that? In addition, there may be outside funding sources, grant making agencies. Again, I don't want to speak for them because they have a comprehensive grant process, but just as an example, organizations like the SourcePoint, for example, that has a grant making process. Obviously, it would have to go through their grant process, but I just cite them as one example locally. So there are other sources of funds that may additionally reduce the burden, the public burden. We are, as I said, at a point where the funds have all been approved by the appropriate agencies, where the last board member hopefully will be appointed tonight by the Mental Health Board, and the GSB can be fully operational within the next few months. And that's a summary of where we are at the moment, but I'm happy to answer. I see Commissioner Merrill looks like he has a question.
I do have a question.
Good.
All
May I?
right, yes.
We had this conversation, I'm going to guess about this time last year, maybe a little later, and
Yeah.
I expressed my support. So, but my question is just for clarity, and it's been roughly a year. I have three questions. Question number one, someone who has the financial wherewithal, do we look to them for payment, or
Yes.
is?
Yes, so if the person has substantial funds, then the costs of the guardian, so paying, for example, you have a person who has, I'll just make up numbers. You have a person who has $1 million in the bank, and they are a single adult, they have no children, there is no person available or willing to serve as their guardian, but they are suffering from age-related dementia. They're unable to make decisions to manage their own finances for their own care. We make a determination that a guardian is necessary in their case, that there is no one to serve, and we appoint an attorney in that place. The attorney then bills the court based on the number of hours that they put into that case. We review the billing, make sure that the billing is appropriate, and those costs are then paid from that person's estate.
I'm going to guess that's probably more the exception than the rule, but is it?
Yeah, I haven't done an analysis to say that there are X number on each side of that, on that ledger. We have to be careful, of course, that the person's funds go first to their care and make sure that their needs are met before the funds go to pay the costs of their guardianship. But yes, I think it's safe to say that that number is less than 50%.
Good. And number two, you talk about the grants from outside sources. Would those be funds that would be used in addition to funds or reduction of the funds paid by these other entities?
I think they would be used to reduce the funds. The costs of operating the Guardianship Services Board are going to be what they are.
Is what it is.
That's going to be a fixed.
So I'm just curious, was that's the expectation, those grants?
Yeah, I know, and I don't think there's any problem with me saying it. I know that Ohio Health reached out to me about a year ago, year and a half ago maybe. I recall that it was during the pandemic, but I can't recall at what point during it. They operate, obviously, Grady Memorial Hospital here in Delaware and the hospital in Marion. Grady does not have a mental health unit. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but Grady's mental, because I don't know that for sure. Grady's mental health patients very often are sent to the hospital in Marion for treatment at the hospital in Marion. And so they came to me and said, hey, we might be interested in doing this. Can we have this conversation? And we talked around the edges of it. And I said, look, I'm not the person you need to negotiate with as to what that looks like. Once the board is up and running and there is a public guardian, there is a board, they would be the appropriate entity to talk to you about what costs would look like. But I believe 2, if not 3, hospital systems have contracts with the GSB in Franklin County. So there's an established model for that.
My third, which is more of a statement than a question. Yeah. Some of this is just putting the dollars, the cost in a different bucket, because we ultimately, through paying attorneys, we're paying some of these things anyway, and that will grow. We're just redirecting the dollars to some degree.
That's absolutely true. I anticipate if we did nothing, that we would absolutely exceed $250,000 in costs, solely out of the probate budget just within the next few years. Those dollar amounts are growing rapidly, and the number of cases are growing. And as the county continues to age, most counties are sort of, if you look at age brackets, they're almost vertical. Delaware County is a triangle with the smallest number of folks at the top and the largest number of folks in the younger age groups. But the folks who moved into Orange and Liberty and the growing areas of the township, and now Berlin and Berkshire and others as they continue to grow and bought houses in their 20s and 30s, aren't going anywhere. And they'll still be in those houses in their 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s. And because of the nature of these guardianship cases, we will continue to see the number grow and grow and grow. We are well in excess of 500 guardianships total at the moment. The number I gave you earlier is the number of cases in which we have a person appointed who is not a family member, not someone who the court is having to pay to serve as a guardian because there isn't another person there.
So to summarize in one quick sentence, this is a better way to serve our constituents and at a cost that is probably better serves and more efficient than the current system if we continued.
Definitely more efficient, probably comparable at the moment, and I have no doubt saving money in the long run. And if we can do this for less money and provide better service at the same time,
That's a good
it
thing.
seemed like a no-brainer. Yeah.
Any other
Yeah, the
questions?
board, there are 3 board members, and that's statutory.
That's by, the statute provides that the participating agencies can establish the board in whatever number
Okay.
they determine is appropriate. We followed the model that Franklin County established since it was the county, the mental health agency, and DD establishing the board.
So those 3 board members serve at the behest of those 3 agencies, and how long are the terms?
That's an interesting question. The agreement suggests 3 years, but the board's going to have to make a decision. This is why I chuckled. The board's going to have to make a decision when they first meet, if they all want to roll off at the same time, or if they
Yeah,
want to do
right,
1,
they
2, and
wanna
3 to
stagger.
begin, which seems to make more sense to me.
Yeah.
We'll let them make that decision.
So they're basically going to provide oversight of the director of this
Correct.
guardianship program?
Correct.
And-
The person who I refer to as the public guardian, that's the way the statute refers to.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. And they'll meet monthly or as needed?
They'll make that decision as needed, I would assume either monthly or bi-monthly, monthly or every other month, pardon me,
Okay.
depending on.
Well, again, I agree with Commissioner Merrill. I mean, I think this makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways. And so I applaud the leadership to get this going.
And I have to thank Deanna Brandt at Mental Health and
Sure.
Chris Hodge at DD. Chris had before there was a statute, she had an internal system like this when she was director or assistant director up in Mahoning County. And so she has been a great supporter of this as we've worked through, and Deanna Brandt at Mental Health has as well. As I said, Mental Health meets this evening. The court has appointed Adam Reinhardt. Adam's an attorney in Delaware County, also practices in Franklin County, who does a substantial amount of elder law and probate work. In fact, he's currently serving as a part-time probate magistrate and part-time probate court administrator in Union County for Judge Roger, the new Union County probate judge. The DD board made their appointment as well, and that's Michael Nix, who I think many of you may know. You'll know his mom, Alice, if you don't know Michael. But Michael's an attorney who does a lot of work with the Board of Developmental Disabilities and persons in that area. Does a lot of great work with us as a guardian ad litem, and has been appointed by the DD board as their board member. So we've already got 2 attorneys on the board. I was hoping for at least 1, just for the legal expertise. I don't know who the mental health board intends to appoint, but I'm certain that person will be equally well qualified, and I'm very much looking forward to us getting moving on this.
Do you have one more question?
Another, go ahead.
I have a real quick question. The contribution, contribution from the other entities, DD and mental health, is that assumed that will be a continuum beyond the first year?
Yes, and it's established based on the number of cases the guardianship board is serving in the future, or likely to serve based on our current numbers, and how many of those persons are there based on, how many of those are clients of the mental health agency, how many of those are clients of the Board of Developmental Disabilities. So we look at the actual, and that's also by statute, we look at the actual number of cases, their actual usage of the services of the board, and divide the costs.
And my questions were simply to provide clarification for anyone who might have questions. I'm very much on board.
Yeah, and obviously, as folks may be listening or may review this on the website later, if they have questions, they're welcome to reach out to me at the court. I'm happy to answer them.
I just have a couple of questions. Mainly, how does it work? Is the guardian usually an attorney?
In most cases, the guardian is not an attorney. In most cases, again, the guardian is a family member or
Okay.
someone who is familiar with the person. I recall the very first guardianship case I presided over as a magistrate at the probate juvenile court in 2003 or 2004 was a lady who was in her early 90s at the time. She and her husband were farmers. Her husband had passed away. She leased the land to a gentleman who farmed it. And he came by one day and was working on the land, and there was either the mailman or a UPS delivery driver noticed a collection of mail had built up and flagged the gentleman down in the fields, and they went to the house, and he went home and got his key and got in the house and found out she had fallen and had been in the house for a couple of days, and she ended up in the hospital, and they brought the case in. While her husband was deceased, there were no children. So we had a guardianship hearing, and a bunch of nieces and nephews came in, and she was very clear. She had trouble paying her bills and other things, but she was very lucid mentally, and she was very clear she did not want any of those people serving as her guardian. And she wanted the gentleman who she was leasing the farmland to. And he was a little nervous about that, so we appointed him and her attorney as co-guardians in her case, and they shared the responsibilities. And they did that for years. For her, she lived to well beyond 100 years old, I believe, and continued to serve that role. That's somewhat unusual and remarkable because of those facts, but it's often something like that. As I said, it's often the parent of a disabled adult who's a client of perhaps the Developmental Disabilities Board. It's often the child of an elderly person.
So then would the commission figure out who would serve?
In those cases, the court simply appoints that person as the guardian, and it never goes to the GSB.
Okay,
The GSB becomes involved only where there isn't a person who logically should serve, and we need to find someone to do that. So now, rather than immediately moving to appointing an attorney, and I don't want to suggest that we won't continue to appoint
Okay.
attorneys in some cases, because there are cases that will dictate the services of an attorney because of the legal issues that are involved. But in many of those cases, we will now simply notify the GSB that there is a new case. They will assign the case either to the public guardian or to the caseworker, or in the future, if there are multiple caseworkers, to one of the caseworkers. And those persons, the caseworkers, could easily handle 30, 35, 40, perhaps slightly more, depending on the complexity of the cases. Of those cases, we're not paying those persons on an hourly attorney rate. They're employees of the GSB, and that's all they do. They are specifically trained to do that.
okay.
So that's why I
That's
say.
what I wondered, because this would take quite a bit of follow-through.
Yes, so this,
And
in this case,
I
it'll
can't quite
be,
see an attorney having the time, or else, well,
so
it would
that's
be
why I
very
say it'll be
expensive.
only those cases where
Okay.
there needs to be a person appointed because there isn't someone available
Sure,
already.
sure. And then somebody else could, well, then there'll be caseworkers then to follow through on a daily basis then. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
the guardian has a requirement by law to make contact with the ward so many times a year, to file
Okay.
reports with the court, updating the court on the person's finances, their care, their well-being. But obviously, if the person is in a care facility, in a nursing home, in a situation like that, those facilities are providing the
Sure,
day-to-day
I
care
see,
for the
I
person,
see.
not
Okay, thank you. Well, it sounds as though it's going to be, the board is a great idea, certainly support it too. Now, do we still appropriate the 80,000? We still have to do that?
That was in the 22 budget, that's correct. And so I think we're coming back next week or perhaps the week after
will-
to actually set up the org key
Okay,
and to get
good.
that approved, just so that the court from its budget, the dollars that the commissioners are contributing, and then the money from mental health and the DD board can all go into a single fund, so that when
Okay.
the GSB is up and running, they can pay payroll and do the other things that they need to do. I should note that the Developmental Disabilities Board has offered kindly to provide some space to house the GSB in its first year, so that
Okay.
they don't have a cost for that. There is actually a space cost in their budget, so that'll reduce their costs some, at least for now as well.
Okay, great. Well, we will move on that.
Commissioners, we do have the resolution ready and available if you want to take action on it today. If not, we can move it to next week.
Would you like to, we can,
I'm okay moving,
yeah, I'm okay with
moving forward.
passing it today then.
Resolution number 22-127, in the matter of approving a new fund, a new organizational key, supplemental appropriations, a transfer of appropriations, and a transfer of funds for the Guardianship Service Board.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Vote.
Vote on motion 22-127. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Thank you. I think that county commissioners 10, 15, and 20 years from now, and maybe it will still be the three of you, but whoever those people will be, will thank you in a decade or two for doing this now. I think we're definitely
Well,
getting ahead of the
and-
curve on what would have been a major problem otherwise.
Oh, thank you, and thank you for
Yeah.
coming over and giving us your time and
Sure.
expertise, Judge.
And I would be
Really
remiss if I
appreciate it.
also didn't thank Magistrate Suffren and former Magistrate Monty Kaiser, who's now retired, both of whom did huge amounts of work on getting this together.
Oh, that's
Thank you,
great.
Judge.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Judge.
Item number 6, resolution number 22-128, in the matter of setting date and time for requests for proposals for transportation services for Delaware County.
So moved?
Second.
Discussion?
Good morning, Commissioners. Bob Anderson with Job and Family Services. We're setting a time to accept proposals for transportation. We will accept the proposals through April 22nd of this year. We currently are contracted with Delaware County Transit. We've been contracted with them since I've been with Delaware County. We're in the third year of our last process, and we're putting this back out for requests for proposals.
Okay. Questions or comments? Vote.
Vote on motion 22-128. Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Resolution number 22-129, in the matter of approving the plat of subdivision for Berkshire Crossing North, Section 1, Phase A, Lot 645, Division Number 1.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion?
Good morning, Commissioners. Lee Bodnar with the Engineers Office. What you are reviewing is a 36-acre re-subdivision of an existing lot that is in North Star in Berkshire Township off of Wilson Road for a proposed single-family subdivision. It's been vetted by all required agencies, and we would recommend approval.
Okay. Vote.
Vote on motion 22-129. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Resolution number 22-130, in the matter of approving a developer's agreement for Home Road Planned Commercial District.
So moved?
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, Commissioners, for your consideration is a proposed development on the south side of Home Road, just east of the CSX railroad tracks, and the developer has provided a contribution to our planned improvements for Home Road between Sawmill and Liberty Roads to include a needed turn lane for their development entrance. So they provided contribution to this.
Okay. Questions or comments? Vote.
Vote on motion 22-130. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Resolution number 22-131, in the matter of approving owner's agreements for Port Rush Road, Evans Farm Marketplace West, Market Street, Section 4, Phase A, and Evans Farm Marketplace West, Market Street, Section 4B.
So moved. Second?
Discussion?
Yes, Commissioners, this is a typical development agreement for street and stormwater improvements. Portress Road is off of Wilson Road in North Star subdivision, and Evans Farm Marketplace West is in Orange Township, just west of the Evans Farm Drive.
Do you know the number of lots on the Port Rush Road, number of units in Marketplace?
I do not know the number of lots offhand, but I can certainly get you that information, Commissioner. I apologize for not having that information with me.
I know the Marketplace West, I assume, is the apartments and some retail spaces.
I believe so,
On
yes.
the west side of the commercial district there in
Correct.
front. Okay.
Any other questions? Vote.
Vote on motion 22-131. Mr. Benton?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Resolution number 22-132, in the matter of establishing maintenance bond and releasing construction bond for Olentangy Falls East, Section 5.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, Commissioners, for your consideration, this is a 36-lot, single-family residential development in Liberty Township. It's located on the south side of Hyatt's Road. The street and stormwater systems were completed last fall, and this resolution will start the one-year developer maintenance period for those improvements.
Okay. Questions, comments? Vote.
Vote on motion 22-132, Mrs. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Benton.
Aye.
Mr. Merrill.
Aye.
Resolution number 22-133, in the matter of approving drainage maintenance petition for Hyatt's Meadows Development multifamily.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, Commissioners, this is a 78-unit apartment development on the north side of Hyatt's Road in Liberty Township. It's just west of US 23. This petition is to place the stormwater management system on the county's drainage maintenance program.
Okay. Questions or comments? Vote.
Vote on motion 22-133, Mr. Benton.
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Merrill.
Aye.
Resolution number 22-134, in the matter of approving plans, specifications, estimate, and setting the bid date for the project known as the 2022 Culvert Supply Contract.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, Commissioners, for your consideration, this project involves the replacement of 3 different culverts. 2 are located on Miller Paul Road and 1 on Steamtown Road. We are proposing to do the work by force account within our agency and with our own county bridge crew for each of these structures, but we do need to bid out the fabricated materials. This would also include the delivery and installation of the precast concrete structures, and our crew would do the excavation work, the backfilling, and the grading at each of the locations.
Okay.
So it's a way of saving some money.
Questions, comments? Vote.
Vote on motion 22-134, Mr. Merrill.
Aye.
Mr. Benton.
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis.
Aye.
Resolution number 22-135, in the matter of approving plans, specifications, estimate, and setting the bid date for the project known as Dell AR CR GR FY22 South Old State Road and Red Bank Road guardrail replacement.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, Commissioners, for your examination, this project is to upgrade existing guardrails located on South Old State Road and Red Bank Roads to meet the current safety standards and requirements for crash worthiness. The guardrails ends will be replaced with newer, safer assemblies that absorb the energy upon impact, if they are hit, which we hope they are not. This is a $200,000 project, and ODOT is providing 100% funding through the Federal Highway Safety Improvement Program for the work that will be done.
Wow. Questions or comments? Vote.
Vote on motion 22-135, Mrs. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Merrill.
Aye.
Mr. Benton.
Aye.
Resolution number 22-136, in the matter of approving right-of-way work permit summary sheet.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Commissioners, this is 11 routine utility installation permits. There's nothing out of the ordinary.
Okay. Questions, comments? Vote.
Vote on motion 22-136, Mr. Merrill.
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Benton.
Aye.
Resolution number 22-137, in the matter of approving a grant of funds to the Delaware County Transportation Improvement District.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, Commissioners, as in years past, we've committed $400,000 to the road and bridge portion of the county sales tax to the TID projects. This would accomplish that.
Do we have any TID projects identified, or any projects identified that will use TID?
I'm sorry,
Do we have any projects identified for 22 that would use the TID?
those are pending identification. The board will be meeting, I believe, next month, and that should be finalized.
Okay.
Okay.
It's pragmatic for the board to have the funds available to expedite the project.
Details. Gotta have the money.
Devil's always in the details.
Any other questions?
Vote on motion 22-137, Mr. Benton.
Aye.
Mr. Merrill.
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis.
Aye.
Resolution number 22-138, in the matter of submitting certification of total road mileage in Delaware County to the Ohio Department of Transportation for calendar year 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, Commissioners, this is a total decrease of 0.7 miles in the county road system for 2021, and it's due to annexation processes, and also ODOT has recalculated their mileage based on new GIS information. So they're using some new programs that help them recalculate, so it does show a rather insignificant amount of reduction.
So that's 335?
Oh, yes, total,
Yeah. .22.
.22.
Yeah, okay.
Again, the devil's in the details.
That's right, yes, yes. Thank you. Vote.
Vote on motion 22-138. Mrs. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Benton.
Aye.
Mr. Merrill.
Aye.
Resolution number 22-139, in the matter of adopting a resolution declaring a necessity and the intent of the Delaware County Board of Commissioners to appropriate property.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, Commissioners, this relates to a parcel of right-of-way needed for a project at the intersection of US 36 and Carter's Corners Road. And this is work done with ODOT. We're handling the engineering, the right-of-way acquisition, and ODOT is providing 80% of the funding toward the construction of turn lanes on each approach areas. We've been unable at this point to reach agreement with the property owner, and what we would like to do is enable that property owner to have access to the fair market value that has been allocated until we reach a full settlement. Utility work on the project will begin later this spring, with construction following, of course, and then completion either in the fall or early spring of next year.
Okay. Vote.
Vote on motion 22-139. Mr. Merrill.
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Benton.
Aye.
Resolution number 22-140, in the matter of adopting a resolution declaring a necessity and the intent of the Delaware County Board of Commissioners to appropriate property.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, Commissioners, this relates to a parcel of right-of-way required for the Bixby Parkway project north of Bowtown Road. It is a small parcel of right-of-way that is required on the north side of Bowtown next to the county campus. We would again like to have those funds allocated to the property owner so that they can have access to them while we continue negotiations for the finalization of that agreement.
Okay.
We'll be starting construction this summer, and should this project be done later, this project should be done later this fall or early again next spring.
Boy, that's great. That's very important.
It is to all
As
of
we
us.
move on Bixby. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Vote.
Vote on motion 22-140. Mr. Merrill.
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Benton.
Aye.
Thank you for your time, Commissioners.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Lee.
That brings us to administrator reports.
Good morning, Commissioners. Just to add on to what Lee was talking about on the roadway, the county engineer's office was successful in splitting out the project. So the first project will be the section north of Bowtown, and then we're still looking at the second piece south of Bowtown. Other than that, nothing to report today.
I have nothing, thank you.
I think Commissioner Merrill.
I just have one thing. I attended the Morpsey meeting last Thursday afternoon, started at noon, actually noon to 2:30 regarding the Intel project, and it was a full house. And many of the questions that were asked had to do with how's this going to affect us, whether it be a small village or a township, whatever, and are they going to get help with roads in their areas once you get away from the core area? And obviously there was no answer to those questions at that meeting, but overall I think there was an excitement about the project and what it's going to do for our central Ohio and really for the state of Ohio. But there is questions to be answered and reasonable questions, and again, it was a full house. So that's all I have.
Commissioner Merrill.
Yeah, I listened to that remotely, and there was a lot of participation, a lot of interest, and a lot of unanswered questions, obviously. So stay tuned. That's going to continue to evolve, and it's going to make a lot of dramatic changes in our region over the coming years. We had our legislative update on Friday afternoon. Couple topics that came up. One was the ongoing dispute over the redistricting of the legislative districts for both the State House as well as Congress. It's in the courts. They're haggling and debating and negotiating and so on. So we would really like to avoid two primaries. Yeah, I guess, I think the most likely scenario is it'll get postponed. The one primary will get postponed, but even that's, that's uncertain at this point. Rick Carfagna and Andy Brenner were on the call, and they both acknowledged that they received a number of state capital budget requests from agencies and organizations in our county, which is good, and it's the ones that, have capital needs, capital improvement projects that they need funding for, so I'm sure Andy and Rick will both advocate very strongly for those projects. And we won't get them all, but hopefully we'll get some really good ones. Ccao Taxation and Finance Committee meeting this Wednesday. The Jedi calls Friday. Ccao had our board meeting Friday as well. The one kind of the big topic was the 90-day RX, the 90-day prescription maintenance program. The rollout was not done well. They would acknowledge that. But it is going forward. It's going to save close to $500,000 a year for Ccao, which obviously all of this saves all of this money. And they're encouraging private pharmacies, if they're interested, to apply. They will be considered and can join the program. Now their reimbursements will go down, so there is a financial impact to them. But it's going forward. And let's see, what else we got? Demolition grants for the $500,000 of demolition grant dollars that were available through the state budget. All 5 of the demolition grants that were processed have been submitted. Today is the deadline. They were all submitted over the weekend. So I want to thank and congratulate Diane. Commissioner Merrill helped in this process. Jeff Jordan helped in this process from the Treasurer's Office. But there are 5 properties around the county that are likely to receive funding in this first round and get demolished and improve their locations and marketability and so on. So very, very positive outcome to a very tight time frame and kind of not as clear as needed instructions that we had to follow. So again, thanks to Donna Gunther, I think is how you say her last name, from the city of Delaware, and Jeff Jordan from the Treasurer's Office. Sunny V, kind of related to that, Sunny V, the property in northwest Delaware on West Lincoln, is officially going to auction at 10 o'clock in the morning of March 15th in the Hayes lobby. The auditor is going to be conducting that auction. Very excited. I think there will be bidders there. The first round of bidding is basically at the lien, the lien and fees amount, which is going to be $150,000 plus or minus. And I doubt seriously anybody's going to bid that, but then they keep reducing the bid as an auction to the point where it could go as low as $1 plus a few minor fees that they have to pay to transfer the property. But anyway, March 15th, 10 a.m., I'll be there. Be anxious to, I won't be bidding, I'll be there to just watch. I can't take on a project like that. But anyway, again, kind of what Land Bank's been involved in pushing this along, but again, good, very probable outcome for a very blighted and neglected property in a very nice, important neighborhood. So anyway, that's all I got.
The legislative meeting was very interesting on Friday.
Rick's last meeting, of course.
Rick's, right. Representative Carfagna is moving to a senior policy position in the Ohio Chamber, and so his last day is actually today, but he's already moved out of his office over the weekend. But he's just done such a great job, and so we all congratulated him on his work, and he said he would be continuing to work with us. So I'm sure that'll be the case, and that will be good.
It will be very good to have someone we know and respect.
Yes.
And have a good relationship within the Ohio Chamber, because
Right.
there are a lot of things we can work on together with the Ohio Chamber.
Right, exactly. And Senator Brenner, being head of the Education Committee in the Senate, gave actually they were pretty startling statistics about state report card being out and how achievement ratings had fallen. And it's really, really, really not good. And he talked about the various schools in our district, or in our county, and then even the level of grade levels, oh boy, not good. Students just did not do well with virtual learning.
I did not attend the meeting, but I'm just make clarifications.
Sure.
I'm sure they were talking about statewide, not Delaware County as far as the
He
results.
actually mentioned both.
They
so-
mentioned both.
Big districts.
We know the urban areas are really
Well, unfortunately, even,
underperforming dramatically.
yeah, they mentioned specifically the various districts in Delaware County that had fallen. Now, those percentages are still going to be higher than those in the urban areas, but unfortunately here too, with the pandemic and not being in school, it's just very hard for kids to learn, and I'm sure teachers to teach. So that was, boy, that was not good. Senator Brenner does have a couple of bills dealing with the restructuring of the Ohio Department of Education, and also legislation concerning the state school board. He feels that definitely needs to be improved for various reasons. So, but good meeting, and our administrator and I are going to be at the Genoa Township Business Association along with Marissa and Commissioner Merrill. And so that is on Wednesday, 7:45 at Genoa Township Hall. So anybody's invited to. So we will be doing that. And we do have need for executive session.
We do. Resolution number 22-141, in the matter of adjourning into executive session for consideration of appointment, employment of a public official or public employee.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion, vote.
Vote on motion 22-141. Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Benton?
All right.
We're now recessed into executive.